Eric Stiles, really great to have you on the podcast. Welcome to the Build Your A Team podcast. We are joined here today with Eric Stiles, the CEO and co-founder of YourSix Inc. I'm really excited to talk to Eric today and learn about how he's built his company, how he started, how he's built it, how he's grown it, and how he's led it so that it is currently very well recognized. It's awarded on the Inc. 500 list, Inc. 5000 list. So all of that, I'm very eager to get to know your story. So with that, Eric, I'm going to give a quick bio of who you are, and then anything else we can, fill in the gaps. You are a U.S. Army vet. You served 6 years in the Army and 2 combat tours post 9/11. And you were initially a 31 Romeo, right? So telecoms and you IT. That was your thing, and now you've transferred that over to the government side. Cool, right?
Yep. That's
Cool.
right.
And after service, you've launched into your tech career, and you even started your own business prior to YourSix. And but you've met some co-founders and built YourSix. Currently, YourSix has a spot in the Inc. 5000, raised 10.5 million to expand its impact, and the whole premise is you are passionate about service, security, and building teams. So, lastly, you're in Minnesota. Eric is living in Minnesota, married for over 20 years, has 3 daughters, and we've met. What was it? I think 2 years ago, Eric, in the CEO circle.
Yeah, 2 or 3 years ago. Yep.
Yeah, a few years ago, and we're gonna do a whole lot more interaction here in the near future. So excited about that. Do you have anything else to add to this to start?
I mean, I can add a little bit as we go, but
Yeah.
that's the bulk of it. Yeah. Thanks for having me, though, Freddie. It's always
Yeah.
good to spend time with you.
Yeah, cool. Really, really appreciate it. What's that bowl, by the way, up top? What did you win up there?
So you mentioned I raised 3 daughters with my wife, which, by the way, my wife is also a veteran. We met in Germany. So I've been coaching my 3 daughters in soccer. Coached them for a total of 16 years between the 3 of them at different age groups, different skill levels, and whatnot. And that's just that's the cup of one of the biggest tournaments that one of the teams had won. So
Oh, that's awesome.
someone has to take the cup home.
And the coach did.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
When and you know what? I'm actually curious. What rank did you get out of the Army as?
Yeah, Staff Sergeant, E6.
As an E6, and you've now built a 8-figure company. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's I think a lot of my story is about grinding. I purposely entered the military as an enlisted private. That was actually just something I even before entering high school, I wanted to approach it that way.
Yeah.
So, I've just enjoyed the whole grind from the ground up type of journey.
I'll kind of peel back the layers a little bit on that so we can understand. But I wanted to start this with actually something I haven't done in the past, and I want to actually start asking all of the folks on this show. But what do you believe is your kind of unique ability or your zone of genius as a business person, as a CEO?
Yeah. So people who know me best know that I'm sneakily ultra competitive. I'm not the one that talks about it. I'm not going to take over a room. I'm not your prototypical alpha male in that way. but I am hyper competitive in the sense of I can identify a weakness, and I can identify something that needs to get better or can get better. And I kind of latch on to that. I don't let go until it is better. Or I don't know, helped it to become better so that we or I can win. Like it's,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Are you never satisfied? Are you like always improving and iterating?
That's a fair statement. Yeah, I would always say that I can be content in many things, but when I latch onto something, I almost never get to that point of being content. Yeah.
That's your superpower. Do you think you just you can identify it and then just do whatever is needed to fix it and improve? That's really cool. All right. Well, I appreciate that. So let's kind of just start at the foundation here, and love to learn, in your words, what does YourSix do?
Yeah, so YourSix, first and foremost, we're a software company, but we operate in the physical security industry. And so what is the physical security industry? It's really an umbrella term that encompasses kind of subset industries like video surveillance, access control, alarm monitoring, video monitoring. AI and analytics is in that space heavily, different types of sensors, audio. There's a lot that encompasses a security solution for commercial businesses. So first and foremost, we operate in the commercial space, not the residential space. And so what YourSix is ultimately, it's a cloud software platform that, think of it like an operating system to manage all of those different security devices, whether it be cameras, door controllers, door readers, speakers, different types of sensors, what have you. It's the management platform for all of that.
Oh, cool.
That really, it wraps it all into a single pane of glass for a very simple and powerful user experience. But it also enables organizations of any size with any number of locations and devices to see it all in a single UI. So it just really helps organizations to kind of standardize on across their enterprise rather than having separate systems at each one of their locations.
Yeah, that makes sense. It streamlines all of it, all of the Internet of Things, and makes it user friendly. Where was that what you did in the military? Like, how did you just get?
No, it wasn't. I was standing up communication networks in the military. So where there was no communications, we would go and we would stand that up, and then camps could be built around us because there was all of a sudden voice and data connectivity. So yeah, I was kind of like a Verizon AT&T on wheels. And I initially took that experience out into the civilian world and worked in that capacity with businesses, selling voice and data services, representing all the different carriers that are out there, and also selling phone systems and selling all different types of technology to businesses. But through that journey, there was an evolution that was happening that I wasn't aware of, but it was happening right in front of me, and that was a transition from on-premise technology to cloud-based technology. And so I'm very thankful that I got into it when there was still the legacy on-prem technology being sold and used, so that I could understand what that legacy equipment was, and then also experience that transition in full. And so got to experience that with business communications and also business IT. We can all agree nobody really buys a phone system today. Everyone's up in AWS, Google, or Azure. So cloud is one, right? We can all agree on that. But this whole industry of physical security, I was never involved in, wasn't really aware of it, didn't have a reason to be aware of it. But frankly, my co-founder is the one who introduced me to the space, and it was pretty obvious that It was a very large industry that was due for its own cloud disruption. We felt like we caught it early enough. And so we started YourSix to really kind of pioneer and be part of that next gen physical security companies that was really going to drive this change.
Cool.
And so that was the premise of YourSix, taking all the experiences that we had learned in business communications and business IT with that transition and applying a lot of those lessons to how we were going to build out YourSix.
So ComNet was that initial IT solutions provider, the distributor, but then you met your co-founder and founded YourSix.
Yeah, so I had, when I first got out of the military, I worked for a company for about 7.5 years in different capacities, and then broke off on my own to start ComNet. ComNet was kind of a technology solutions provider, so I was contracting with the different providers, different service providers that are out there and selling their services to businesses of all shapes and sizes, whatever their technology initiative may have been. So I was doing that on my own. That was my first entrepreneurial itch that I was scratching, and did that for about 3.5, almost 4 years before partnering up with someone who was also a veteran. And we started kind of cross-selling into each other's business, into each other's book of business, I should say. And things were going great. Everything was fine. And then we met our other co-founder who we kind of latched onto pretty aggressively. And he's the one who ultimately introduced us to physical security. And that was when this whole new idea came about.
Wow. That's fascinating. So your first co-founder, I'm always interested how people find their partners, right? So that first one, though, he was in your space, he was a vet, and I guess a competitor of some sort, and you guys were selling.
You could have absolutely said we were competitors. We got introduced at a networking event here in the Twin Cities. We hit it off, and we were both kind of at that point where we thought it would be more fun to do it with someone than do it by ourselves. And so that's what we did. And we did that we were only about 6 months in before we met our other co-founder. So I say this other co-founder because we initially, we truly started a whole nother business.
Well, physical security, right?
Yeah. We actually, so YourSix was in the name of what we were doing when I partnered up with somebody, but it was a totally different business. And when we decided to pivot 100% to physical security, we call it physical security as a service. And as soon as we pivoted to that, we held on to the name YourSix. We combined Your and Six together to be one. So capital Y, capital S, just one name. And we held on to that because we felt like it was even more fitting. Because when you think of having someone's back or watching their back, and then you think of video surveillance, we're quite literally watching your back. So we felt like that was really fitting to hold on to.
Yeah, I like that. That's perfect. Actually, that's perfect. I'm also very one of the big, I guess, ingredients for a successful business entrepreneur. It's timing, right? Timing. How did you realize? At what point did you say, you know what, this MVP that we're building for physical security actually works, and this is what we should latch onto and we should focus more on?
Yeah, so my other co-founder that I keep mentioning, who introduced me to physical security, he created this, not to get too technical, but he created an environment out of a local data center that allowed me to test the market for the demand of cloud surveillance. And this was back in 2016, early 2017 timeframe, and there really wasn't much. There weren't many options out there at all for customers to jump on cloud video surveillance.
I see.
So I was essentially testing the market, And it was amazing to me that there weren't options out there. We quickly signed up a number of customers, good-sized customers, multi-state customers, even a couple international taking us into Mexico. Like right away, I was dealing with decent-sized, mid-sized businesses that were latching on to this idea of cloud video surveillance and recognizing the benefits of that. So we thought, okay, there's clearly a demand. What we were initially testing was not scalable, so we needed to figure out a different product to bring to market. We first entered the market white labeling someone else's product that was already built. That was our quickest way to market. And then we always knew that as we grew in revenue, we would hold on to some of those profits and put it back into R&D for ourselves to eventually build our own product. And that day came after a few years of white labeling and having a lot of success in the market. That day came when we launched our own product in 2021. So we spent from 2018 to 2021
developing your own.
More so with an idea. We didn't really actually pull the trigger on developing our own until 2020, and then we launched it in 2021. So
that's brilliant. That's exactly how you should do it, right? White label it as what's available, and then if you can own it outright, then build it yourself once you know the demand is there. So my question actually is, like 16, 17 era, you were focused completely on commercial. So there was no technology like ADT or Ring or anything like that then. There was even nothing for residential, I believe, right? At that time?
I think Ring was already starting.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Ring was already taking off, and Google Nest and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's because of that, which allowed everyone to have some type of new experience around security at their house. Well, guess who's also buying that? Business owners are buying that too, right? And then before you know it, they want that type of experience for their own business.
Yeah.
It just has to be delivered in a different way. Residential grade technology is never going to be the same as commercial grade technology for varying reasons. But yeah, how can you deliver that same experience, especially to someone who's responsible for security at that business? Yep.
So I'm curious also, how much of your business is commercial versus government at this point?
It is, I'd say 99% commercial. And I'd say there's
still, really?
Yeah, and I'd say about 1% only because, so we go to market through partners. We don't actually sell directly to any end customers. And because of that, we go where our partners bring us.
Got it.
And so there are definitely, well, I should peel that back. Depends what you mean by government, because there's different layers of government, right? And so if we think about, state, local, municipality type of stuff, then I would maybe bring that back to like a 90-10.
Okay.
Yeah, because we do have a decent amount of state and local business.
Cool. Okay, well, now I'd like to get into the meat and potatoes of this, which is how you built your team, right? And so I imagine it was just you and your two co-founders for a long time, right? You guys are doing everything, or how did your team start and evolve?
Yeah, it was one of my co-founders. He came from a company that was already existing. It was more or less an installation company. So there was some smart hands, type of talent already at the company that he was at, and we kind of orchestrated this acquisition of assets kind of right away as we formed YourSix in late 2017. So 2018. About halfway, maybe a little more than halfway through that year, we acquired the assets of that other company, which meant a lot of like the IT gear, and then it was an option for their employees to join us, which all of them ended up joining us. So right away, we kind of had, I would say for like 6-7 months, it was the three of us. But then, shortly after that, it was 8 or 9 of us.
Oh wow! So you guys
Yeah.
made an acquisition pretty quickly, and was that all like levered? Was that all debt, or did you guys have a unique solution to that acquisition?
Yeah, we had the means from the prior business. Just from the foundation of the prior business that myself and the other partner had. So,
Got it.
like I said, there was a business in place, for 3.5-4 years prior to this, and so that was a lot of kind of legacy revenue that we kind of pulled in
Sweet.
to the new business and used for that asset acquisition. But yeah, we had immediate technology equipment, we had immediate technology expertise that came in, and then that enabled me and my co-founders to just immediately go out to market and start selling.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
That's timing. What a beautiful thing
Yep.
you got going over there. When I think about you, Eric, I mean, I see a quiet professional. Like you said in the beginning, you're competitive. You can do shit well, and you don't brag about it. You don't like beat your chest. So with that mindset, does that compare to your other co-founders? And then how did you guys take that to focus on different areas of responsibility in this business after the acquisition?
yeah, I mean the interesting conversation is, okay, you're going to come together and who's going to have what role,
Yeah.
right? And we paid attention to all the horror stories that we would hear out there about multi-founder companies and everything. And I think just, the three of us are just, I mean, I don't want to sound like arrogant or bragging about this, but I think the three of us are genuinely good people. And, I think we just approached it with that belief and that understanding about each other, that when we decided who was going to be what, me as CEO, the other one as CTO, and the third was going to be head of sales. It was kind of a natural understanding of who was going to do what. And
Oh, really?
yeah, and I think we meshed really well. There came a point where it just made sense for he was at a different point in his career, and it made sense for him to move on, and so it's me and the other guy that are driving the ship now. So me and my CTO basically, we drive the ship, but we have very clear understanding of what lanes we operate in, full trust of one another.
Perfect.
And, I often say, because people have asked us before, have you guys gotten closer or further apart personally, through this journey? I'll absolutely say we got closer through this journey. So, I didn't even know him until 2016. And we've definitely built a good friendship as this journey of building YourSix has unfolded, which, as you can imagine, there's nothing's linear in growing a business, so it's a lot of ups and downs, some serious downs, through that journey, and just being able to navigate that with both of us maintaining a cool head and trusting one another. It's been awesome to be a part of.
Very cool. So this is your first co-founder that you've been with the whole time?
No.
This is your second. Okay.
Yeah, this is the one who introduced me to physical security. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Okay. So very cool. That's a hell of a story. So with the acquisition, Eric, obviously you guys grew from 3 people to, you said 9 people in 6 months, right? Overnight almost. And you guys started selling, right? Started selling and attacking the market.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, I don't know. Maybe all of them were amazing employees, but maybe some of them you had to level up. Was there any like key person or key hire that you made that really changed the trajectory post acquisition?
Yeah, we needed a parent in the room, and we
It
found
wasn't
one.
you?
Yeah, no. So it was our chief operating officer, also chief experience officer. We call her two different things, but it's kind of one and the same. She's a highly experienced operational leader, and we got introduced to her because she's the sister-in-law of my original co-founder. And we got lucky. Again, this is a timing thing, right? We got lucky in that in her own personal journey, she was kind of tired of big corporate America, and she was looking for a change where she could have more impact on something. And we met for lunch, shared our vision and our dreams and that sort of thing. And it seemed to resonate with her. And at first it started off in a contractual engagement, like a part-time engagement. And then within a couple months, it was like, all right, I'm ready to come on. And she's been with us ever since. So
Awesome.
she's been phenomenal. She's really helped us build processes. And then as we added systems, being able to, utilize those systems properly, always just building processes. When you talk about, we never even heard of the term customer journey mapping before she came on board. And there's just been so much that she's taught us about business in general, especially from the operational side, but also from a leadership side. Just an amazingly talented conflict resolution type of individual who we're blessed to have.
That's really cool. So you guys got super lucky hiring family.
Yeah.
Super lucky.
Yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
good news story.
Yeah. And there's actually there's some more examples of that too, but she's definitely, yeah, we have been very lucky. There's some friends and family involved in the business, and along the way, we've just been so focused on who it is, and just the confidence that they're going to be able to perform well. So yeah, but super lucky. I mean, early in the early years, we used to always talk about how the stars were aligning all the time, for us. And yeah, and of course this is all pre-COVID, right? So once COVID came, the game changed entirely. So
Sure. So on this amazing COO hire, your co-founder's sister-in-law, what was her background? How tell us a little bit about her and why you felt she would be just a good addition for this.
So she had a unique background in not just leading operations teams in different steps along her own journey, but she also, a few stops before her last stop before YourSix, she had been in telecom, and she had been leading one of the CLEC, one of the competitive local exchange companies that could sell against the big names and operate in the territories of like Quest and then whatnot. Anyway, I knew the company that she worked at, and I understood the role that she had there. And that's important because if you remember, we were taking a lot of the lessons that we had learned from the transition in telecom and IT into physical security. That story resonated with her because she could understand it. She could visualize it, and so that was kind of one of those stars aligned type of situations where it was like, oh, not only is this highly qualified operations leader available and interested, but she also happens to have telecom in the background and understanding the type of service team that we're going to be trying to build internally. So yeah.
So, no, I mean, again, timing wise, you guys are seemingly very lucky throughout all of this.
Yep. I like the acronym of laboring under correct knowledge, and then you kind of make your own luck.
Yeah. Well, I how how do you then, of course, you look for somebody with a little bit of experience in the industry. I mean, to know how the industry works, that's a huge advantage. Um, how did you shape the culture, right, of your company with your military experience and just building teams? What did you find worked for you?
Culture's been, I know everybody says this, right? But yeah, culture's definitely been a big part to how we've built our team. Um, I forget what other veteran company it is. It might be Zero Eyes. If you've ever heard of them, they're actually in our
Hmm.
industry. Um, I think one of their values is don't be a jerk, and and I love that because we didn't quite say it that way,
Don't be an asshole. You
but we
probably
have to
said.
be a good human
Yeah.
as one of our core values, and we hire based on that with just kind of a sense of what we feel from each hire that we make. We need people to own up, good or bad, and we need people willing to go that extra mile, willing to wear extra hats. It's a startup culture, right? But it's not a Silicon Valley heavily financed type of startup culture. It's a real bootstrap startup culture. Again, it's that grind that for some reason I'm drawn to, of just starting from the ground up. So there's a lot of intangibles that we have to kind of identify with each hire, and it ends up being maybe less about the skill and more about the person, and
Huh.
and so we've just paid a lot of attention to that. And speaking of my COO, she kind of led the charge with a lot of our early hires, probably up until we were about 30 or 40 people. She led the charge on hiring, maybe even more than that. She might even correct me on that. But she knew the type of people we wanted to have in the company, and she was a gatekeeper to jerks or
Yeah.
anyone
Cool.
that may not be great to work with.
Yeah, so I mean, she obviously did the initial screening and just to see if this, if you're an asshole or not, and she probably had that feel. So do you feel like do you see that your hiring process it's more like gut instinct than like data driven selection?
Yeah, so we're going through our own call it maturation, transition, whatever you want to call it. But early on, when every penny matters to the business, quite honestly, we were trying to avoid latching on to any kind of recruiting firms or anything like that, and we were relying on our network, and
Hmm.
and then our network's network, right? And so we were really trying to find our own people, or have the right people find us in different ways.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was a lot of just intuition, in the early phase of the business. But we are starting to go through that next evolution where we have an outsourced HR firm now,
Hmm.
and they do a lot of that talent screening. And if we have 50 to 100 applicants for a certain position, they're the ones who narrow it down, and the hiring manager themselves, you really won't get involved until the final five or so are identified. So so now we're focusing a little bit more on resume and background, and that sort of thing. And then when the field gets narrowed, then that hiring manager, whether it's me or anybody else, can kind of come in and kind of flush out the culture side of it, to see who's a good fit. But
Hmm.
we have yet to jump on any kind of you know predictive index or culture index or any types of those types of tools yet. I love those tools. We just haven't implemented them yet, and maybe that's a later phase in our journey.
Sure. Uh, so when you have, what do you instruct this outsourced HR, talent team to do to screen? Because when you say don't be an asshole or don't be a jerk, right?
Yeah.
And as a criteria, it's subjective, right?
Yeah. It's
Subjective.
very
So,
subjective.
I mean,
And people
so
can interview well.
yeah, exactly. So, like with amongst the don't be a jerk rule, there must be others, but how do you describe that to somebody? I'm curious. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, we asked that firm to flush out that concept of, are is that individual really just good working inside of a box, or
Mm-hmm.
are they willing and able, to work outside of that box and
Got it.
often, and like how much of a team player are they really? Um, so
Ah, okay.
so
So
that's
that's
something, but it's focusing on the resume side, but then that's as much as we ask them to flesh out. From there, it's us kind of reiterating. We're going to give real world examples of what it's like to work at YourSix on a daily basis, and do they have the chops for it?
mm,
So it's we do our best. It's not a perfect science, and then hopefully we identify those that maybe they're not best cut out for this environment. Hopefully we identify that early, and then we make a change from there. But even if the HR firm were to narrow it down to 4 or 5 people for the final round, it doesn't mean we have to go with one of those 4 or 5.
sure.
So we can keep opening that position up. But yeah, culture is very important to us. But we are still small, so we do need kind of plug and play people. We can't take green people that we have to spend a lot of time and energy training up. So that's where the resume side comes into play. We do need those that we can just really plug in, say, hey, here's a quick little here's our way. But they ultimately know the industry, they know the role, they already have contacts, that sort of thing. So we do rely heavily on experience, and kind of that blend between experience and culture.
I totally understand. So, with Milspec Talent, we've definitely ran into companies or clients in the past that were like, "Hey, just give me the values, right? Give me somebody with the intangibles because I can train them on everything else."
Exactly.
But that's obviously a client that has the pockets to invest in that training
Yeah.
and the timeline to invest in that training. And so our typical solution, right? When we find people, it's and head on for them. Well, it's that background in the industry because you know the nuances of the background. You start understanding the players. You understand how things are done. You understand the. So I mean, we're not saying it's completely one way or the other, but having I think that's the hard part, just having identifying the people with that foundation to quickly understand that industry, whether it's not if it's not specific to that, it's at least tangential, right? So they can
Right.
pick it up quickly.
Right.
And then and obviously the intangibles. So yeah, for us, we call that the veteran 2.0, right? The model. It's the folks that have gotten out, understand where they fit, and understand how they can bring value to a company. Have you
Yeah.
have you made a risk on? I mean, you're a veteran. Your co-founder were a veteran. Have you ever taken risks like on veterans that don't have the industry background? Throughout the history of the company. How did
So
that turn out?
we've hired some veterans. We have some veterans currently on staff, and we've hired other veterans in the past that are no longer with us. We um, we don't necessarily have a target focus on hiring veterans. I do wish
Mm-hmm.
that we had a little more focus there. But
Mm.
it is hard when we're looking for specific industry experience. That's where it gets challenging.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
again, this comes back to a phase of the business that we're in. I believe. Um, but our industry is doing a better job of attracting veterans as a whole, and so I think that pool is going to grow just naturally. And I even spoke to a group of transitioning veterans recently about that, about how our industry of physical security is actually really trying to inspire or recruit veterans to consider the industry as a career place for them. So
I
hopefully
mean,
that hopefully that grows. But
yeah, it seems super logical that vets would be interested in this space.
yeah, absolutely. It's that heightened situational awareness that we all likely left the military with, um, helping to secure assets and to secure people, and just being part of that mission of doing so. Um, I think it kind of gave me a sense of purpose again in a weird way,
Mm,
because
mm.
selling telecom and everything was fine. It was paying the bills. It was okay. I understood it because I was trained on it. But it was there was still a huge void between that sense of purpose that I had in the military versus
Yeah,
what I was just doing as a job.
yeah,
And now that I'm involved in the physical security industry, I do feel that kind of sense of purpose again. Not just as a business owner, but like truly what we do in the industry of physical security matters. And it matters more and more as the world, gets a little crazy. So,
yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. I want to ask you, a question here, and hopefully you're, be honest, right? Be honest. Obviously, that's why we're here. But as a veteran entrepreneur and as a veteran business leader, do you find that veteran talent, veteran employees, or veteran, teammates are a value add? Do you actually see that they improve things for you,
I absolutely
compared to
see, yeah, I
compared to
absolutely
like the
see
not?
the value of hiring a veteran. There's no question about it. Now, every veteran's got a different story, right? So
Yeah.
every veteran served in a different, kind of way, but we do all have some commonalities, between us all. And number one, like we all raised our hand, right? We weren't forced to do that, so there's something there mentally that's unique about us. And then there's no day that should be the same in your military service. So being adaptable to change, should be a strength of veterans. And so, I
Hmm.
mean, I've seen that firsthand. I believe I carry that, myself. And but yeah, there's all different, I guess, levels of. Um, I mean, we're all humans at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Everyone brings in their own personalities to it. It's not just being the veteran, but yeah, there's certainly intangibles that comes with being a veteran that hopefully is ingrained in their mind, or you would expect it to be ingrained in their mind, to
Yeah.
just be willing to be the next man up, or next woman up. Like, just have that mentality of how can I help, what needs to get done, accomplish the mission at all costs, kind of mentality. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
again,
that's
I wish we had more access to more veterans,
yeah.
and I think that'll come, but. I've seen it firsthand, but I've also
Good.
gotten to witness it in other companies that I've been, maybe close with the founders, or I follow their story, and I I see it there too.
Yeah. Good. There was the reason why I asked that is there was a point in my life after transition from the military that I was like, man, veterans, like you said, not all veterans are the same, right? And veterans aren't, especially after transition. We need time to transition, like
Yeah,
psychologically,
yeah,
emotionally. Vets need time to transition, and hence, and then they have to kind of go through the journey of who am I now, who am I, becoming. But one, like, post that point again at that veteran 2.0 that we coined, but post that point, it's like everything you mentioned, the commitment to the mission, the building teams, the the taking feedback, continuous improving, building systems, get shit done, right? Just never quitting. All of that makes vets a huge value. I just want to make sure, that you see that as well, or if you haven't, I'd be curious. But yeah, cool. Um, so moving on real quickly to one other point in the hiring and onboarding side. How do you how do you assess the new employees during onboarding, and how quickly do you make a decision on whether they should stay or go?
So we're at a point now that if they're not a direct report to me, which means, I mean, basically leadership are the only ones that are a direct report to me at this point. So I rely heavily on my leaders, within this. So whoever that hiring manager is, I rely a lot on them. So I just try to gain as much feedback. How are they coming along? Are they picking up our processes and our systems? Are they picking up the expectations of the role? If it's a salesperson, are they making the calls that they need to be making? Are they making the trips that need to be made? Are they, do they have the contacts they told us they did? Like all these. There's a lot of different nuances, but there's usually a ramp period that we give everybody, and that's dependent on their role. A salesperson's ramp looks different than a support person's ramp, and what those KPIs are that we kind of measure that individual is going to be different, within the team. But ultimately, I rely on the hiring manager, and if things are not getting done in that department, then we have to look at the why. We have to look at, is it the new hire? Is it the collective group? Is it the leader of that department? Those are, at some point, someone has to answer for it. And so I'll continuously press the hiring manager to make sure that hire was in fact a good hire.
Oh, yep. So obviously, like, you just mentioned root cause analysis, right? So you go through that exercise and understand if if it's the operator or if it's the process. What is it that you do that YourSix does well to keep your best people engaged and motivated?
We have a culture of transparency that I think is refreshing to a lot of the people that have come to work for us. The majority of the people that work at YourSix have come from a larger organization.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something to be said about that feeling like you're part of building it, or being part of the early days, but with that, I mean, we just as a leadership team and myself, as the CEO, when I address the company in our all company meetings, for example, I'm extremely transparent. I don't hide the goods or the bads. Like, here's the situation. That's the reality of it. We're all a team. How are we going to get through it? And I think that's received well. At least based on the feedback that I get from the department heads, is that that's usually received really well by everybody with how transparent we are. Because when there is transparency, it feels like, I think everybody feels naturally like heard. Like, when we ask, like, how are we going to change this, or how are we going to get better here, or what needs to improve, we take everybody's input. And as you know, not everyone's input is going to be put into action, but we're actively seeking their input, or at least it's a wide open door through chat, email, or phone, to give that input. And when you pair that with transparency, I think people just hopefully feel like they're really a part of the team, and that we're actually building something together.
How large is your team now?
61.
I mean, that's a good sized team. All right, that's a good that's definitely um, having layers and management in the process. Yeah, that's
Yep.
definitely
Yeah,
neat there.
we do have some middle management, and I do think we're kind of in that, like, we're in the middle of a next phase. I'm not really sure when I'm gonna feel like we've gotten to that next phase, but I do feel like it's coming, probably over the next 12 to 18 months, where maybe we get over that 75 hump or something like that, and maybe it just feels a little bit different between that 50 and 60 people. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
So as like as a practitioner of just continuous improvement and identify areas where you can do better or your team can do better, where do you foresee the obstacles that you need to overcome here, in this next phase, or areas that you will really need to focus on to improve?
yeah, from my seat, it's like it's the balance of investment. Um, which areas of the business do we double down on? Which areas of the business do we pull back from, and
Mm-hmm.
or just maintain a certain level of investment? When I look at the levers that I have to pay attention to and can pull on, to kind of move the business, in a way of like, hey, let's throw some more at sales and marketing, let's throw some more at R&D, let's throw some more at support. Understanding kind of where to do that as we kind of enter this next phase of the business. Um, yeah, that's always the challenge. It's like, getting to your
Right.
first million is often, the hardest. But then it's like, okay, how do you get to 3? How do you get to 5? How do you get to 10? How do you get to 25? Like, there's all these different phases, and we're kind of in the middle of one of those, right now. So it's, how do we take the team that's gotten us here to get us, to there?
Yeah.
Do we have, everybody we need? If not, where do we invest? And how to maintain culture along the way, and the energy
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just I keep saying this, but it's, I think I feel like we're on the cusp of that next phase.
Huh.
And
Interesting.
we've been through multiple phases already, but I
Mm.
feel like we're kind of like in the middle of one right now.
Oh, very cool.
So it's
That's
exciting.
exciting.
Each one of those are challenging, but it's
Yeah.
really exciting, especially once you feel like you're finally into that next phase. It's like, all right, let's go.
Do you think you're I mean, obviously you're gonna be intentional about it, but how do you think that culture is gonna change in that next phase?
Yeah, I mean, I try to surround myself with people who have been there, done that, and whether that was, being a part of CEO Circle, or I'm a part of a local group now, a local peer group now. And then I also have my board, and I've got some other mentors, and I try to be a sponge to all these different, kind of warnings of what's around the corner,
Mm-hmm.
or some interesting ideas that I feel like we can implement internally. Um, I really hope we can hold on to the culture that we've got. We're going to certainly try our best to do so.
Mm.
Um, I think no matter what, we can get to kind of the growth targets that we want to get to, but it's a whole lot more fun if everybody's having fun along the way. And so
Hell yeah.
it's
Hell
and
yeah.
that's important. That's important to me.
Yeah.
I always said, as soon as I got out of the army, I had opportunities to take big, DoD civilian contracting, jobs. Basically, what I was doing in the army, but as a civilian contractor, would have gotten paid really well as an early 20s,
Mm-hmm.
guy. But I was always told my wife, not all money is good money, and I've kind of lived by that. And as a business owner, we obviously were looking at it a little bit differently, and for a variety of reasons.
Mm.
But that doesn't take away from the core principle of, like, we want to enjoy what we're doing. We want to enjoy who we're working with. We want to have fun. We want to work hard and play hard. Um, those principles are still there, and otherwise it would not be as fun to wake up every morning. So,
Yes, I agree. I used to think that core value, when you see have fun or, for companies, I thought that was a joke, back in the day. But it's if a company actually prioritizes that and they realize that, happy cows produce good milk, it's very important. And you can tell the difference, right, in teams and culture if they do prioritize that. So good on you for that. Just to kind of wrap up here with just lessons learned and challenges you've overcome. What's Where do you see other business owners make mistakes in hiring or when they're hiring?
at the risk of upsetting those who rely on the science of certain things.
Hmm.
I've noticed this in both the CEO circle and my current peer group. I've noticed that there's almost too much attention given or too much trust given to a tool that was meant to be a tool for the hiring process. If
I'm
you
glad you're
just
saying this.
if you just like rely on that tool and whatever that tool may be, I'm not even going to name the tools, but there's a lot of tools out there to help you identify who's a good fit, personality wise or
Sure.
whatever. But if that's your measuring stick and that's it, then I think you're missing out on a lot of other factors that can make a really good employee, a really good team member. But yeah, I think that only resonates with me because it's I saw it recently,
Hmm.
or that's just top of mind because I saw it recently. But yeah, that's and then the other thing,
So
of
give us an
course, and this is
example of that.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, please continue.
Yeah, so let's say someone's looking for a very specific profile to fit a
Mm-hmm.
certain role.
Mm-hmm.
And they're dead set. That is the profile that they absolutely need.
Mm-hmm.
You can't convince me that if you look at different companies that in that same role, there's got to be a blend of profiles. They're not all the same
Mm-hmm.
profile. And there's probably other profiles that are outside of the profile that you think you need that are even better performers or better team members or what have you than the profile you're looking for. So I don't know. People are getting too hung up on the tools, I think, and
Yeah.
not enough trust in human evaluation.
Yeah.
So that
Did
would
you?
be the one thing I would highlight. And then post hiring, it's that you know being a good person, you're afraid to make the move. You're afraid to make the change when it's obvious that you need to make the change.
Mm.
So second guessing yourself or feeling bad for that person that you just hired. You know, sometimes we do have to fire quick, and
Yeah.
so that's the other one. So hiring phase, too much reliance on tools. Post hiring phase, trust your gut.
I love that. I love what you said about both of them. Um, the over reliance on tools. I see that people get really blinders on. And then a lot of business or a lot of leaders who fail to recognize that onboarding is just as or if not more important than the actual hiring, right?
Yeah,
And get them
yeah,
started straight and then evaluating them along the way and making decisions, right? because
Yeah.
sometimes you could have made a mistake on folks, because
And it
we're
goes
all
both
learning.
ways. So, I mean, that's an excellent point, Freddie. Onboarding is so key, and it goes both ways. You have to identify whether or not the person you just hired is good at onboarding themselves, right? And are they grasping it through that ramp period? But on the flip side, the onboarding experience that you put that new hire through will also determine whether or not that new hire is excited about taking the job.
True.
So that's we've always looked at it from that second angle, whereas we want to give such a good experience to our new employee so that they feel good about making the jump to YourSix. Where we actually need to improve is probably more of the how can we get more out of the onboarding process to get them ramped up quicker and all that, to from a well-oiled machine standpoint. I think that's an area that we still have ways to improve on, but we've been so focused on that customer experience side of it, where we apply that to our new hire as the customer.
So, okay, with your advice and just not over relying on tools, do you have like a non-traditional hiring tactic or strategy, to really validate sometimes the subjective assessment, or or even top of funnel, attracting the right type of people? Do you have anything that's
Yeah.
non-traditional?
I don't know how non-traditional this is, but we've built a reputation in our industry that and we're so thankful for this. We're so excited about it. But there are a lot of people that come to us now, and whether that's at industry events or heard it through the grapevine, or there's a lot of these people that are kind of poking us, saying, hey, is there a spot for me, kind of thing. And if we had 15 open roles, we could fill them, just by that. So we're really blessed to be in that position. But when we do have an open role, the I guess a little more non-traditional route that I sometimes take is I will take a call with that person before the job is even posted. I'll feel them out, and I'll be extremely transparent with them during that process, and I expect transparency back in the sense of what would it take for us to get them. Because I look at it like, let's not waste each other's time. But usually that person, I'm on the phone with them because a referral's been made. Someone that already works for us is vouching for someone else,
I see.
or someone we trust somewhere else is vouching for that individual. And so I do take advantage of those recommendations, those connections, and I just say, look, I'm going to be transparent. You be transparent. Are we still excited? Yes. Okay. Apply. And we'll try to get it to work. So I think that's the most untraditional thing that I might do, is I go out of the process that our COO has put in there, and I just say, look, I'm going to vet them out first.
That's you've said something that really is another thing that I kind of harp on. But you're going to have referrals. You're going to have people that somehow intersect with your life, and you're like, hey, that could be a great addition to the team. So pre-vetting them, I think that's a very great use of your time, and being very real and just transparent. But also the fact that you have them apply afterwards. I think that's something people miss. It's taking that referred candidate and then opening that job rec to the market and saying, hey, let's compare this referred candidate to you. I mean, so they're to against you to see if we're actually getting the best. So, um, yeah, that's a huge thing you shared. Eric, I appreciate it. This was really fun. We learned a lot. Thank you for just being open and educating our listeners and viewers. I wish you guys the best of luck. And any last comments?
No, pleasure to be invited. Like I said, always good to spend time and shoot the shit with you, Freddie. So
Yeah,
I'll look forward to the next event that we see each other at. But
yeah,
yeah, best of luck in everything that you do, and thanks for having me.
yeah. I appreciate it, Eric. Now, to our listeners, go build your A team. Thanks.